welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Sheikh. You guys, it's New Year's Eve. We made it. 2020 is almost over. Somebody wrote this really funny thing that said, quietly walk into 2021. Don't say no shit like this is my year. Don't touch nothing. Don't say nothing. Just quietly get into 21 and just see how it plays. Because we know 2020 was a fucking shit show. So let's just be quiet. Let's not be braggadocious about what we're planning on doing in 2021. Let's just see. Let's just play it out. Let's be in the moment. All right. I'm very excited about my guest today. We just found out right before this live started is that him and I made the journey from New York to LA around the same time. Must have been like a pilgrimage time happening from New York to LA. He's a very talented filmmaker. I did my very first commercial, my spec commercial for Xbox that I'm going to talk to him about. And I honestly, when I auditioned for him, I was like, no fucking way is he going to call me in. There's no way I got this. And then he called me and he gave me the job. And I think usually that's when you usually get the job, when you think you're not going to get the job. Here's my very talented filmmaker friend, Grant James, a.k.a. Tyler Durden. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Why are you cold? Because you had the turtleneck thing, but then you have half sleeve.
This is my gaiter. This is my COVID mask.
I see.
I was actually just at the grocery store.
Got it.
Everyone's wearing these. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know what's going on, but I
don't know what's going on either. Yeah, I thought everybody was converting to Islam. That's what
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
The men are wearing burqas too. This is amazing.
It's some sort of eruption of a fundamentalist religion. I'm not quite sure.
How interesting. I'm all about that life. Man, you and I were talking about how the glamour of LA is dwindling away for you.
Yeah.
Tell me more, Grant.
Well, we moved here. Well, like as you mentioned, we moved here at the same time. I guess it was. Well, so I wonder what was going on in New York that kind of sent us out to the West Coast, right? Because you said Cheryl, who you actually met on the commercial that we.
That's correct. Sarah, everybody is because of you. That's correct.
That's good. Yeah. I think when I moved out here, there was still. First of all, there's that when you move to a new place, there's always that sense of kind of freshness and newness, and everything seems very exciting. Maybe sometimes a little bit, uncertain, but that's all. Still, there's a lot of motion surrounding a new move.
Yeah.
After a while, I think in any place, things can get a little stagnant.
Sure.
I also feel that Los Angeles has declined. I mean, I don't want to get into a political discussion, but I was actually just in Hollywood 2 nights. It's just the neighborhood up Sunset Boulevard.
Uh-huh.
And we can talk about why I was there. I was there actually to see Wonder Woman on the bus. Yeah.
And a drive-through.
A drive-in. Yep. Yeah. And it's a disaster. Hollywood is like the neighborhood is. I've never seen. It's like a refugee camp.
Yep.
In terms of the homeless situation, and that was an issue, obviously before COVID. Yeah.
That's right.
And it's a lot of people. Listen, this is an intractable issue. I don't want to get into a political discussion here, but
it's okay, Grant. I do political discussions all day here, so I'm down for it.
Let's just say, no matter what your political leaning is on this, what's happening is insane. It's insane.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It's like I'm tempted to repeat that story about Emma Goldman. She was a socialist communist back in the 30s, big fan of Stalin, and she went over to Russia to see this great, this gorgeous Soviet utopia in action, and she got there, and it was a nightmare.
Right.
And but everybody there was like, no, everything's fine. And it's that sort of that cognitive dissonance between like somebody who's like kind of like, no, this is not fine.
That's right.
And when I speak to political leaders and people here, I mean, sure, they don't say it's fine, but I don't get any sense of urgency.
That's right.
And I think if you were to take somebody from 1950s or even 80s, let's talk 1980s LA, kind of catapult them forward into 2020. I think they probably would think that they had suddenly landed in a post-apocalyptic movie.
I agree with you. I mean, let me just tell you about my leanings about what I think. I personally, I've never thought very highly of Governor Newsom, but I think during the pandemic, I mean, I fucking hate the guy. So let me just put that. Garcetti sucks. I think he's even worse than Newsom. I think what really pisses me off about these leaders is that besides being incompetent, that they are, they're also highly hypocritical. And, you know, I don't have any blind loyalty to any party. I don't give a shit, okay? I'm a registered independent, so I could fucking care less. What I give a shit about is for you to do your goddamn job, right? We as the people have chosen and elected you, made you a leader to run a city, run a state, and you're doing a horrific job. And you somehow expect this kind of entitlement thing that we're going to just keep re-electing you. Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. There's a vote going on right now. There's this whole petition about recalling Newsom. Yeah. Sign me up. I fucking signed it. I want him.
I did sign it.
I think it's awful. I think, you know, just the hypocrisy of giving a press conference about staying home and social distancing, and then fucking partying out with his fucking buddies and at French Laundry with Nancy Pelosi, which is another conversation about Congress and Senate having term limits because these fucking dinosaurs need to just fuck off and die off already. But here we are stuck with this. And, you know, I've literally heard people say, I voted for Newsom because he's handsome. I'm like, because he's handsome? That's why you voted for this guy? You got to be fucking kidding me right now.
Right.
I mean, look at the disaster Los Angeles is. And let's not forget that the moratorium, once it expires for renters come February that they extended, you're talking about the current population of homeless is what, about 100,000 or so in LA?
Probably. It's officially 70-ish thousand, 65, 70 in LA County.
Right, LA County.
But who really knows?
Once the moratorium ends, what happens to these people? You're already seeing people getting evicted. You're already seeing like that issue is going to come in. So, you know, a lot of it is a problem. And I don't give a shit if you're a Democrat. You're not doing your job right. Fuck off. Like, do your job. I don't give a shit if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You're drowning the fucking country. Like, you're drowning the state. You're drowning the city.
Yeah.
Why should I reelect you? Why?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, it's interesting you mentioned you're an independent. I actually switched my party affiliation this year from Democrat to independent.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll be quite honest, I'm inching a little bit even closer towards the Republican side.
Don't do that.
I know. Look, I didn't vote for Trump. I actually didn't vote for Biden either. I put in a third party candidate.
Libertarian?
No, I wrote in Tulsi Gabbard. You know, she was.
Oh, Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. I look, I'm attracted to political courage, frankly. And I don't mind if you're doing something, even if I disagree with you, like at least you're being very clear about your decision making, your goals, and the strategies and tactics you're attempting you're going to implement. But what we get from Newsom and Garcetti is we get empty rhetoric, like constantly. I mean, every time Garcetti utters the phrase "homeless neighbors," I'm like, well, who are you talking about? Are you talking about the drug addicts who are like on my corner? Who's the guy assaulted my wife and I? I mean, who, like, these aren't my neighbors. My neighbors, this guy Sang. He's a Vietnamese immigrant, the greatest guy ever. And Bill across the street, whose son is LAPD. You know, like, these are my neighbors. Like, not the guys shooting up on the street corner.
That's right.
And unless there's an honest discussion about people who are truly in need, and we need to get them. You mentioned renters. You know, people who which is the vast majority of people, quite honestly, who are one paycheck.
Of living, because the property value is so high. It's driven by these, greedy realtors that are just driving up the market, where people like you and I cannot afford to buy a home. I mean, I was telling you, I was looking to buy a house in Vegas this year, mainly because the property value, you get a fucking shack for like $800,000.
Yeah. Yeah. That's in Vegas or that's here?
Oh, I'm talking about in LA. You get a shack.
Oh, yeah. No.
$800,000. Oh, you get a giant place in Vegas. Are you kidding me?
So I think so. Why did that not happen? Was it just because the difficulty of trying to find a home in the pandemic? Just the logistics?
I have looked at a few places. All my gigs that were supposed to pay me that big money that I was gonna put down.
Yeah.
All of it disappeared.
Right.
I lost all that income. I lost the TV show. I lost all my touring. I lost 95% of my income.
Oh my God. I'm no. I'm deep.
What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Huh?
All performers got hammered.
Oh, we got fucked. Oh, we got royally fucked. We got royally screwed. And we're hoping that come 2021, some of the stuff. I mean, imagine working all your life for a career, and then you're just like, all right, oh my God, I'm finally gonna start. I'm finally making money. I'm finally rolling, and I finally got these contacts, and I'm finally having stuff roll. And something beyond your control just came and just wiped the whole thing out, and there's nothing really you can do.
Yeah, it's really.
Do this, like I've been live streaming 5 days a week, and now I have this is my 103rd episode today. I mean, build online content. So, just try to think outside the box and get creative. But I want to know, I mean, as a filmmaker for you, now they've opened up production, but I think just today I heard that they want to shut production down. What is it for you? I mean, what is it for you?
Well, we shot a movie in the middle of the pandemic, and a real movie, not one of these like we're locked in our house and create a movie over Zoom kind of things. We actually went to Nevada.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
okay. It's a feature.
A feature film, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of a.
Is it independent? Is it a studio film or is it an independent?
Yeah, it's very independent. Yeah,
okay.
But we had a lot of people from LA come out. A lot of actors from LA. We had it's a classic. I call it kind of a classic Roger Corman monster film. And Roger Corman was a big producer of these B movies in the 1950s. And a lot of directors actually worked for him, like Jonathan Demme and Ron Howard. That's kind of in the same vein. It's a monster film. We're out in the desert. There's a biker gang. There's a rogue army unit. We had a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, we had so much fun.
That's awesome.
But, we were off the range. We shot this in a town of I think the population was like 250. Okay. Like we're in the middle of literally nowhere.
250,000.
No, people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 250 people. And we did the COVID protocols, but, we obviously we didn't have to endure the level of scrutiny that we would have if we had done this in LA, because various unions are involved and so this was also somewhat early on. This was in September. So when did the pandemic hit? March, April, May, June, July. Well, I guess it was only a couple months ago, but it was before this latest real upsurge, right? That we're experiencing here in LA and across the country. So I don't know. I mean, I think so many people had their films shut down, and the film festival circuit got hammered.
Oh, screwed. I'm just, you know what's sad though, Gran? There was an article that came out like about like May, June, and they were talking about essential jobs and non-essential jobs. And essential jobs were doctors and nurses and food delivery folks, and non-essential number one was artist. I'm like, number one non-essential job is artist. Every motherfucker is sitting at home watching TV, watching shows because of us, because of artists. How can you
Yeah.
say it is not? I'm like, is this article written by a Pakistani parent? Because it looks like it. Become adopted, not an artist. It's just like, oh my God, who wrote this?
Well, I've got various opinions about that. The whole, the government, local, city, state, local, federal. I mean, the entire. Everybody, I think everybody has the opinion that the authorities, quote authorities, have been sort of dealing with this in a very ad hoc style, and maybe that's just the way it is. Maybe we overestimate the ability of whoever's in power to manage a crisis. Maybe that's something we've been bred into by Hollywood movies. Like, the authorities know what they're going to do. They're going to come in with the black helicopters. The truth is, I think what we've all woken up to is that no one really knows what's going on at all. And they'll say something on Monday, and then they'll say something completely different on Wednesday. And people are all outraged about this, but it's like, well, this is like, these people don't know a lot of these people don't know what they're doing. And then politics got involved in all of this, right? So then you got science, then you got politics, and politics is like a distortion field. And once politics gets involved, people stop thinking clearly, right?
Right. And
so that's why we're in this. That's one of the reasons we're in this mess. And the other reason is just something we can't get out of. It's a 1 in 100-year disaster, right?
Grant, I would say it's a combination of things, right? Yes. I mean, look, there's a reason we elect leaders and people who are more qualified than us in positions of power to be like, I can't do this job. I feel you are a person who can do this job better than I can. So that's why I elect you to go and take care of crisis. But when crisis actually hits, I mean, look, the pandemic is something that we had expected for years, right? Dr. Fauci, the CDC, there's a reason we have these things in place, is because this sort of thing is expected. It's not like the CDC just popped up this year. CDC has been around for years, right? Dr. Fauci just didn't come into existence now, where they just went and found him in New York, was like, hey, you, Italian guy.
the guy who was pushing a hot dog cart, and we just were like, that guy, let's make him the Center for Disease Control.
He knows a lot about diseases, but all the dirty hot dog water in New York City. Let's go.
Right.
Right? It's not like that. I mean, we clearly had these protocols and these agencies in place to manage something like this for it to come along. But if you have a horrific leader, the way we did Trump, who is still refusing to concede and still refusing to step away, I mean, you have a real hot mess on your hands, which is what we have right now as Americans. I mean, look at New Zealand, right? If you talk about don't expect your leaders to know answers. Well, you can make the argument, well, New Zealand's a lot smaller country than we are. You're right. But you can also mishandle the shit out of pandemic there too, right? It's not something that they would be immune to that. You can still fuck that up in Australia. You can fuck that up in New Zealand. But their leaders somehow figured it out. They were like, we put science above politics and bullshit. So what is the science saying? Science saying social distance, wear a mask, don't get together, stop dating, stop going to gyms, right? Let's just clean this mess up. And they did. New Zealand has done a fabulous job cleaning their country up. So I think it boils down to the right leaders doing the right thing, and not so much expecting somebody like Trump. God knows I didn't fucking vote for this guy. And expecting of this buffoon who's up there, paying off porn stars, because they've seen his mushroom penis. For fuck's
sake. Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I can't argue with that. I do think I think it's much easier to keep a virus out of a very small island nation than it is to keep it managed in a huge and fractious country.
You can still fuck it up. Look, if Trump was the leader of New Zealand and not done jack shit, they would have a lot higher cases of death and infections than they did under the current administration.
Most likely. I'm probably more reluctant than you to place all this blame on.
I don't want to place all the blame on Trump. Not all of it. I'm not going to put all the blame on him. but he is the leader of the free world, right?
But okay, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I wanted to ask, were you born you were not born in the US. Were you born in the US?
I was born and raised in Pakistan.
And when did you move here? How old
When
were
I
you?
was 15.
And okay, and let me ask you this. Your family, are they still in Pakistan?
My immediate family? No, they're all here.
They're all here. So how is Pakistan handling this? I mean, are you connected enough with your
I mean, my mom is in Pakistan right now. And the problem with countries like Pakistan or India is that there's no real system in place to really track down the disease, right? Yeah. So, I mean, the reality could be that there are 100 people dying a day, right? The reality is 1,000 people dying a day. But who tracks it down? Right? They don't really have agencies in place. There's so much corruption. There's kind of, even though they tell you numbers, but do you believe them? They don't have checks and balances the way America does, right? And even in a country like America, where we do have checks and balances, we still have a giant fuck up things on our hand.
Yes.
In fact, in a country that has none of those things in place.
So you're saying in a country like Pakistan, it's almost impossible to get any real grasp of the pandemic because there's corruption, there's a lack of real understanding of how many people have it, who's dying from it, right? That's correct.
Although, I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, what are the numbers? Like, what are you watching on TV? She's like, honestly, I don't even watch the TV. I don't watch it. It's too depressing. She's like, I don't know.
Is she in Karachi?
She's in Karachi right now.
She's in Karachi. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how we don't Americans don't get a lot of news anymore of overseas. I've noticed that there's been a real shift, especially with our supposed national news media. It's really amazing. We get very little news about what's going on in the rest of the country. Pakistan, India, South Asia in general, quite frankly.
Right. That's right. Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you, Grant, do you, you said that you just shot your independent movie, but have you had other filmmaker friends who are like, yeah, we're going on shoots and we have our production that's going full blown and no problem? Because, Tom Cruise recently came out and had that giant rant where he was yelling and screaming at some of the people who worked on the set and they weren't following COVID protocols, and he was yelling and screaming at them, which is absolutely, I thought he was right about, because, you have hundreds and thousands of people, so you have so many people that are depending on these jobs, and one person is going to fuck it up for the rest of them, and he's not going to have it. I mean, he's kind of carrying the burden of the entire project on his shoulders. But, I mean, do you have other filmmaker friends who are just like, yep, going on shoots, no problem, or are they like, fuck, we're worried about getting COVID and it's getting.
Yeah, no, nothing's happening. I mean, I think the studios, obviously they started shooting some stuff and I think some television came back. I was communicating with friends below the line, G&E people and they were excited to get back to work, but it was strictly protocol. I mean, you saw images, people wore masks, face shields as well.
For sure.
But no. The liability is too great. There's so many issues surrounding getting a production off the ground now. We had to actually cancel a music video we were going to shoot in Albuquerque. That got scuttled at the very beginning of the pandemic. Right. And the production that I was going to be making, another feature film, we had to completely scrap the business plan and rewrite it because the business plan was based on theatrical receipts. Box office. Yeah. So that's a big question too. Is box office going to come back? My wife and I would go see a movie once a week, either at the ArcLight here in Hollywood or at the Alamo in downtown LA, and it was great. We love it. I mean, there's great cinemas, great people work there.
Yeah.
And all that's just dark. And actually, what do you think? I don't know. I personally feel that once this ends, people are going to be dying to get out of their homes, and all this people think that streaming is the new paradigm. I think it is a new paradigm, or it's continuation of an ongoing paradigm. But I think people are going to go back to the theaters. That's just my gut feeling. What's your opinion on that?
I feel so. This is a kind of an insider information. So a couple of years ago, I had a meeting with an executive at a very big studio, and we were having a really nice chat. And she turned to me and she said, "What kind of projects are you working on?" I said, "Oh, mostly TV." She's like, "Good." She's like, "Because television is going to be where all the content is going to go." I'm like, "Why do you say that?" She's like, "The multiplexes are going to disappear." She's like, "They're going to go. They're not." So I feel like now with the pandemic, I almost feel like it expedited the process, which is something that we never thought that the pandemic would hit, A, it would hit, and B, how it's expedited the process of, listen, if you're a family of 4 and you want to go to watch a movie, you're looking at an expense of somewhere between $100 to $200. You can't do that every week. You can't do that. That's like maybe once every 2 or 3 months kind of ordeal. You can't afford to, go watch, because between the tickets, the parking, the popcorn, the drinks, you're just, I mean, it's expensive. If I have a family of 4, and if I can catch a movie in my living room, right, for $30, or 40 or $50, that's I still saved $150.
Oh, I agree. And I think we've seen that shift over time. I mean, absolutely. Especially smaller independent films generally go to streaming now, and Netflix, of course, makes movies for their platform.
That's right.
I think there'll probably be a bifurcation in the marketplace. I mean, theatrical money still, you can make a lot of money there. I mean, I'm looking at this strictly as a business person, right? Like how do I recoup my investors' money in any project that we're undertaking? So right now it's very difficult to know because of the pandemic what's really happening. I mean, this is basically this whole thing is like there's going to be an asterisk under box office for this entire period, right?
Yeah.
But it's to me, I love going to the movies. I mean, I drove to Hollywood to go sit in a car to watch Wonder Woman projected on a wall, just because I wanted to get away from the television. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know. Listen, entertainment is going to continue to be, present in everyone's life.
Evolve. I think it's going to evolve. You know, like when the pandemic hit, I had there was a comedian named by the name of Erica Rhodes, very talented, and she had her special being taped. And where was it being taped? I drove my car to Rose Bowl in Pasadena. My car was to pull up on a red carpet. I would stick my face out, and they would take pictures of me as if I'm walking the red carpet. Then they handed me a bag of like goodies, like free shit, like Budweiser without the alcohol, and here's the AM that you have to tune in to watch her. Then you pull the car, and the lot was full. Massive stage, drones, like 5 drones watching the stage, massive screen behind her. So when she gets up on stage, you can see her, and then you tune in to your radio, whatever AM, 5:40 AM or whatever, and you can listen to her comedy right in your car.
Who was this?
This is Erica Rhodes. She's a comic.
Oh, she's a comic. I don't know. That's interesting. And this was at the Rose Bowl?
This is at the Rose Bowl.
Wow. So this is when? This is a couple months ago?
No, this is like summertime. So like around June, July.
Right. So we're in the middle of obviously right in the middle of all this COVID.
Right in the middle of it. And massive cranes with cameras recording the whole special.
So they're doing their best. People are doing their best. People are doing what they can do bring people together without harming anybody.
That's correct.
Which is interesting because it's like and there were a lot of people there. Were people were out? People attended this event?
Yeah, so they were in their cars.
Right, of course.
As a social distance, right? So people were just getting out of their cars to go get snacks, but they were coming and sitting back in their cars. And the fascinating thing was that the opening act was doing this thing. It was like, where's my BMWs at? Where's my Hondas at? Right. It was no longer about people, but it was about cars. And they were honking. That was another thing, because if you can tell a joke and it crushes, people are laughing and it wasn't like that. People were honking their cars and she had to wait till the honking stopped so she can go on to the next bit.
That is hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
Yeah.
All these things are going to be time capsules, and people are going to look back at them and be like, that is crazy thing that people went through. I've got 2 kids. One of them is 11. And I tell her all the time, I'm like, this is like this, you're going to remember this experience.
That's right.
Especially when you get out of this. You remember that weird period when you were like,
right.
Living and everyone was wearing masks, and you couldn't play with your friends unless you were 6 feet away. I mean, it's just crazy.
That's right. I would think that, I don't know. Did you get the polio vaccine, or were you too young for that?
I don't know if I got the polio. I must have. That's a very good question. I mean, I know that was a big thing in the 50s, right? Everyone got that. Well, when it was Jonas Salk, I think, who developed that vaccine. And
Jonas Salk did, yeah.
Wasn't it eradicated by the time, like, I was born in 1971?
Oh, yeah.
So,
1963.
Okay.
Is when it came out.
Right. So I don't know. That's a good question. If I actually got a polio vaccine, was it still a threat? Was polio actually a threat at that point? I don't know. I don't think it was.
By 1963, by the time the vaccine came along, it was a threat. And then, of course, as the years passed by, everybody started getting vaccinated. But I wonder that when there was a polio breakout, what were the precautions they were taking for kids to not get infected with the polio virus? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
I wonder what they were doing.
I don't know, and I don't know how that virus was transmitted. And I also don't know why children were particularly susceptible. So these viruses are so interesting because this one, COVID, doesn't affect kids at all. I mean, a very, very, very infinitesimally small.
So yeah, very small percentage. I just read about this kid today that got COVID and his body went in COVID shock.
Right. Sure, it's going to happen.
Seizure shock of some kind. But I don't know how polio. I think polio was contracted, if I'm not mistaken. Let's Google it. How was polio spread? Here we go. Polio was transmitted from person to person, typically through contaminated water. That's how it was.
Right. So you drank.
Yeah. Oh, ew, gross. Polio is spread when the stool of an infected person is introduced into the mouth of another person through contaminated water or food. Ew.
Right. So that's why. So Mona, that's why it was highly people who were living in the inner city then, the 1950s, were much more likely to get it than if you were like living in a more rural area because people were living on top of each other. And that was the case with the 1918 flu as well.
That's right.
Which is much more devastating than this. I mean, kids died left, right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, but also look at the technology, right? A lot of people are like, I don't trust the vaccine because it just came out. And it's like, look, I've spoken to at least 4 scientists, multiple doctors. One of my friends is actually works for a very big pharma. She also works in the infectious lab. She's a scientist. And we were talking about this. And what people don't understand is that, for instance, like the Pfizer vaccine, that there's that whole COVID-19, it's like SARS-2. That's what its name is. And she said they've been working on that for at least for the past 5 years. That if a pandemic hits them, like, is there a vaccine for it? So it's not like they came up with this overnight. You have to think about technology. You have to think about social media, how quickly information can be passed on, right? If I'm in Germany and I'm working on something, I can send that information to you in a matter of seconds. Right. And you can get it in a matter of seconds. So a lot of people are not calculating that and adding that as a factor of how quickly we've been able to come up with a vaccine. Because a lot of people are like, well, it takes 10 years. So this vaccine is probably not going to be good, or it's going to fuck people up. Well, you had fucking pink hot dogs and you've had street fucking food and you didn't know what the fuck was in it, but you took it anyway. So shut up and let the doctors do their job.
That might be an interesting way to deliver the vaccine, just through some kind of fast food, like I don't know. That's just an interesting idea. Instead of people having to take shots, maybe they could just eat a hot dog or something. Maybe it'll be easier for people to I I think you're absolutely right. That's a very interesting point. This is the other thing.
Like you're eating McDonald's after you get high every fucking weekend, and you're worried about what's in the goddamn bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the hell out of here right now.
I know the stuff people shove down their throats is kind of grotesque, quite frankly. So yes, I agree. But I'm gonna give a shout out to capitalism here for a second, Mona. All right, I was having a discussion with somebody. It's probably somebody I was related to. I'm not going to get more specific than that. And they're the younger generation, and they're going on and on and on and on, rabbiting on about socialism. And I'm just like, I basically was like, look, first of all, you have no idea. Read some books, learn some history. And then I said, what do you think is bringing this vaccine? It's not the government. It's the fact that the government basically said to all these pharmaceutical companies, the companies that you loathe and you hate and you claim are destroying everyone, and basically said, here's a bunch of money, go at it. And they developed this vaccine in record time.
That's
now
right.
You're correct. Of course, they had all of that institutional knowledge that led up to this. It's not like they started from zero.
That's
right?
correct.
But this is capitalism at its best. That's who's developed the vaccine. It wasn't the government of the United States. It wasn't the government of Venezuela. It was Pfizer. It was Moderna. It was AstraZeneca. All these pharmaceutical companies that for years people have railed against. Now, look, it's not binary. Yes, these same companies, they create drugs that are at exploitively high prices. We know all that, but we need to have a more nuanced view of this.
Yes.
We would be fucked without the fact that we have this capitalist system. These companies came together, competed against each other.
Yes.
And in record time produced this vaccine.
Yeah.
Get us out of this.
I think the thing that I will add to you, look, I think there is such thing as compassionate capitalism. There is such a thing as you can be compassionate, right? Let's also not forget that there was a massive motivation for somebody like Pfizer and Moderna and AstraZeneca. There's a massive amount of money that's waiting, right? I mean, they invested what, $1 billion, $2 billion in developing this vaccine. By the time it gets out just to us, people like you and I, we're not getting it till probably May, June, easy. Right. We're not getting the vaccine. So they still have a massive amount of vaccine to put out. But yes, you're right about if we didn't have capitalism, we will be fucked. There's no denying. But it's a sword. It's a double-edged sword, right? It's a double-edged sword. Like it serves us right now. We have, medicine coming in, but then you also have them exploiting, and jacking up prices where a medicine that costs $500 in America costs only $40 in Canada, right?
Yeah. Well, no, see, and this is where the conversation around these topics gets interesting because we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's when you start dealing with absolutes, you come up against individuals who are like, well, we just need to tear down the whole system. And replace it with what? With what? With your crazy,
I'm not about that life.
I know you're not, but I'm saying there's a lot of people are right now, and it's a little, it disturbs me.
Yeah.
Because I've found myself in discussions with various people who are just engaging in the world in such an uncritical fashion. They're just imbibing nonsense and spewing it out. And you need to actually take stock of what's really happening here. We can have a discussion about the pharmaceutical companies, their pluses and their negatives, because everything on planet Earth has positives and negatives. I mean, that's the thing. The same weather that brings water to our crops can destroy us in a hurricane. I mean, this is the nature of life. And it stuns me that we're living in a world now in which you've got these absolutes. It's very dangerous.
Yeah. Although I would add though, Grant, that, the water that will, the tsunami that will come in and drown you or destroy your property would only be able to do that if the man-made pollution that's melting the fucking glaciers every single day, where human beings are like, not man-made, sorry, don't believe the scientists, go drive your diesel car, not a problem, let's do some fracking here, all good. It's like, no, 99% of fucking scientists are just like, dude, this is a man-made situation. We need to curtail this shit. Plastic should be banned. under all circumstances. Fuck plastic, because I mean, single-handedly is just the amount of packaging that gets thrown away. Just this holiday alone, how much shit did you get in packages? You're like, why the fuck is it in this giant fucking package that's gonna probably destroy some poor dolphin's life some down the line? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
We're all complicit in that, and I don't. I agree with you. I'm a little less reluctant to. The weather will. Prior to global warming, there were plenty of tornadoes and hurricanes. Global warming is clearly happening. It's clearly accelerating things. People have also built more along the coastlines, and which put themselves in the path of a lot of this activity. I don't know the answer. I do know the answer is that if you feel, so Mona, if you think we got to ban plastic, did you stop ordering from Amazon? Did you stop? You know what I'm saying? It starts with you, right?
100%. So I am a huge, I am absolutely against bottled water. I do not buy bottled water under any circumstances.
Okay. So you've got a canteen?
I have my canteen. I fill my stuff up. Yeah. I just refuse. I don't even buy trash bags. I mean, whatever stuff I get my groceries in, the bags that they give me, that's what I throw my trash in. I don't buy trash bags. I don't do, like, if I use like the Ziploc things, I try to reuse them as much as I can. I wash them, I reuse them. I mean, I just try to do my part as much as I can. I recycle. I try to, I drive a hybrid. I would love to drive an electric. Like, I try to do my part, Okay. Am I 100% really good at it? No, I'm not, but I try. I fucking care.
You're not exactly. As long as we understand that if we can try, but we're not, like, I've had people who rail against, I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation. Somebody will come in.
Who are you talking to, Grant? Are these your kids? Who are you talking to?
Kids, colleagues, people are, they'll come in and they'll be like, man, Amazon is the most evil company on earth. They're ruining everything. I'm sick of giving them money. And I'm like, all right, how many times did you order from Amazon this week? Well, I had to because, and I'm like, okay, you don't get to criticize Amazon if you're ordering from them, because there's a word it starts with an H and ends in a Y. And if you talk, you're just signaling, you're just basically trying to exculpate yourself from sin. This is you going to Catholic Church and saying, forgive me, Father, I've screwed the secretary. I don't want to tell my wife. And then he's like, you're all fine. You're like, okay, good. Maybe I'll go back and bang her next week.
We're really jealous of Catholics. I just want to put that out there. Because Muslims, we don't get that. As Muslims, we don't get that. You're like, you're going straight to hell. Fuck you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Are you a practicing Muslim? I mean, are you?
I'm not a practicing Muslim, but I think I'm definitely a lot more culturally Muslim than I am religiously Muslim.
Yeah, of course, right. Yeah.
I do like to celebrate the big holidays and stuff, and of course, mainly because of the food that comes with it. So
yeah. Are you getting together? Have you been able to get together with people here over the holidays at all, or have you been?
No, I haven't been. I mean, I've been like socially distanced. Like,
we haven't. Like, it's just my wife and I. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but you know what? What would suck even harder would be me on a ventilator. So I'd rather just social distance, right?
Yeah, you get the point.
Listen, the vaccine is around the corner. We'll get it. Let's just social distance, protect ourselves. You know what it is also? A lot of people are like, well, I mean, I'm young. I'm not going to get it. And it's like, okay, or I'm going to survive it. Majority of the people survive. Yes, you do. I have at least 3 friends at this point who have gotten COVID and have permanent health issues. Permanent. They don't know what the fuck is wrong with them. They have no idea what's wrong with them.
How old are these friends of yours? What's the age?
40s.
Okay.
Early 40s, mid 40s.
And so there's a term for that. I think they call them COVID long haulers. I think that's the term.
Okay.
And it's what you just described. It's like they've gotten the disease, they got over it, but they continue to have will you tell me, what are they, respiratory issues? I mean,
one of my friends' left lung has collapsed permanently.
Christ. Wow.
So he's screwed. And on top of that, they can't find out what's wrong with his liver. Something's happening with his liver, apparently.
Unbelievable. Wow.
I have another friend who has memory issues. the brain is foggy at all times.
Right.
I'm having a really hard time remembering stuff. Yeah, those are like some of the things that I'm hearing about people.
And that's what's disguised in, and those are the hidden casualties, because when people who are trying to downplay this disease, they'll just be like, well, look, the percentage of people who survive is like 99.8%. And I'll be honest with you, at moments I've also trotted out that number, because I go back and forth on this less wildly than I used to. Before I was like, they're shutting us all down. What the hell is going on? This is bullshit. But I'm probably more in your camp now, especially what you just said. I've also heard of friends who have suffered. People have lost their sense of taste. That hasn't come back.
Their sense of taste. That's correct. That's
smell and taste, and I guess those are kind of connected. And those numbers, the people who have suffered from long-term issues, they're kind of hidden. They're not in the figures, like the mortality figures, right? We just see like, well, these people survived and these people died, but there's this huge number of people who are dealing with the long-term ramifications of this, and that is some scary shit. That's some really scary stuff.
And listen, the thing is, Grant, that of all the scientist friends that I've spoken to, they're like, we don't even know. Like, we don't even know what it does 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Like, we don't even know. Where scientists will not know for the next 10 years, really the magnitude of what this virus is capable of doing.
Yeah.
We're not. I mean, let's just be honest, and I don't feel it's fair that people put all this pressure on scientists. They're like, well, you're the scientist, you should have all the answers. Yeah, but they're also working in real fucking time. They're also human beings. They're not aliens from another fucking planet with like advanced technology. Technology they have. They're telling you shit in real time. Like, get off their fucking backs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that is definitely the problem. That goes back to what we were talking about before, which is that there's an expectation that we have that these people have all the answers, and then
they're human.
But some of them speak very definitively, and then when they have to change their minds, do you remember at the beginning of this they said masks were not necessary?
Yes, Grant. A lot of people come up with that. They say that, but you are in the beginning of a pandemic. This is something that Dr. Fauci came out and talked about. He was just like, yes, in the beginning, we didn't know that it was airborne, right? And as time passed by, they were like, fuck, this is airborne. Like, we need to tell everybody to cover up. And we're like, well, you said I don't have to cover up. And no, I'm not gonna. And it's like, well, grow the fuck up. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with that, except it's a pretty big shift. It's a pretty big shift. They were kind of more definitively like masks are not necessary. I look back at that period, and I think what was really going on is they actually knew masks were necessary, but they didn't want the N95s to be hoarded by.
That's exactly what the reason was with Dr. Fauci. That's correct.
Right. And which is important. I mean, they needed the medical personnel to be wearing those.
That's
right. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, sorry, Sean Carter has a lot to say today. I love you, Sean Carter. He said, he's saying, so your argument is now, unless you're perfect, you can't critique the system. Who better than sinners to comment on the sin? They know it best. He was talking about the Amazon comment that you made, that you can't criticize Amazon if you're ordering from them.
Oh, yeah, no, I firmly believe that. You can't, I don't think, yeah. It's just, I mean, come on. Like, you gotta, look, do
you order from Amazon? Grant, do you order from Amazon?
All the time.
Okay.
I don't criticize them either.
Okay.
My brother works for them.
Your brother?
Yeah, my brother works for them.
Oh, yeah. Got it. What does he do for them?
It's funny. He's at the beginning of the pandemic, he was tasked with managing all the logistics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's the guy who's making sure you're getting your package.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I know that Amazon was guilty and was getting hammered for telling their employees to come into work in warehouses, and they were getting infected, and they were like downplaying the whole thing. They were like, oh, nobody got infected. Okay, see you later. Bye. It's okay. You can just come in. It's fine. You're not sick.
Well, again, this goes to what we're talking about with the doctors. So you have an angle on that. I have a little bit of insight of that because I kind of know.
Yeah.
I do know that Amazon worked Amazon took all of their profits I believe in the first quarter of the pandemic and plowed them back into health and safety. Like they really spared no expense. And of course, there were moments when it didn't work because just as you said at the beginning of this, we're human beings, right? And then the media picks up on those moments, that one guy, that acts, if something negative happened, and then they extrapolate that and say, look, Amazon is this heartless, evil corporation.
Yeah.
It's just important not to fall into these. These are all very simplistic narratives, right? That we're being fed. We're being fed primarily by the news media, right? It's like, well, this is, these people over here are bad, and these people are good. And it's like, come on, we're not children anymore. We should be able to process this information from divergent sources and make our own decisions.
Right.
Make our own. But with regards to Amazon, I mean, yeah, they're a corporation. Are they venal? Are they like, are they in the back room rubbing? No, they're trying to make money. They're actually vital for many people. Like that. Imagine if Amazon didn't exist.
Huh?
Imagine if Amazon didn't exist in the middle of this pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't ordered a lot from Amazon, so I don't really know. But
I think a lot of people rely upon them.
I guess I'll be calling up Best Buy. I guess that's what will happen. Best Buy will be getting my money. I guess.
I think you should probably spend your money elsewhere other than Amazon because they have captured far too much of the market, right? I mean, they're almost monopolistic at this point, right?
That's right.
I'm all about free markets,
That's right. I mean, I'm a big small business supporter. So like I'll go out if I have a choice between Starbucks and a mom and pop shop to go and buy coffee, I will walk into the mom and pop shop.
100%. So let me ask you a question. How do you feel about the government mandated shutdown here in California and specifically in LA? Because they haven't done this in Texas.
Yeah. So we didn't have a lockdown, right? Like Australia had a lockdown. We had a stay-at-home order. Those are two separate things.
They are different.
For instance, I have a friend in India. An Indian friend, and he was telling me they have a restaurant. He owns a restaurant with a couple of partners, and he said that in India they had a lockdown. No delivery, nothing is open. I mean, it's fucking ghost town.
In the entire country?
Home. The whole city and state is locked down. You go out, you get penalized. Period. You get a ticket, you get penalized, you get thrown in jail. Lockdown. Because what were they trying to do? They were trying to prevent the transmission and people going and visiting each other. Complete lockdown. You cannot. You even in Australia. You know what they did? In Australia, they had a 3-month severe lockdown. You were only allowed to walk within a certain perimeter of your house and come right back. You're not allowed to order delivery. There's nothing open. Nothing is open. Nothing. And if you step outside the perimeter that you are told to go, people were getting $1,800 and $2,000 tickets.
Really? How did you? It's so interesting. I did not know that. I mean, I know that those countries handled it certainly better than the United States, but that's how they did it.
And that's how they did it. And guess what? Guess what? When they lifted that lockdown after 3 months, they have next to no cases of COVID in Australia.
Right.
Next to no cases.
And if you fly in to either of those countries, Australia or New Zealand, you're actually put in a quarantine hotel, from what I understand.
Right, quarantine hotel. They did that in Israel too. They took, if you had COVID, you had a quarantine hotel you were placed in, right? I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? Americans are very big on freedom, right? We're like, our freedom, you're infringing on my freedom, and I know. And it's like, okay, all right, we're not going to infringe on your freedom. We're going to give you a stay-at-home order, right? They didn't even do a lockdown. Imagine if there was a full-blown lockdown. People would be out in the streets with their fucking guns, losing their goddamn minds. But the proof is in the pudding. Yeah,
no, I agree. Look, this is the tension that we've had from the beginning of our country. It's always been here. The tension between, you see it in the tension between the states and the federal government. You see it in the tension between different political beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, I've not lived anywhere else. I've traveled around the world, but I haven't lived in. That's what I wanted. That's what I was asking you earlier. You grew up in Pakistan. You actually lived under a different political system.
I lived under a dictatorship.
Right. Okay. So where would you rather be?
I think the answer is clear. That's why I'm here. Now they have a democratically elected prime minister because the Pakistani and the Indian government system is based on the British system because they ruled us and then left us with a inferiority complex about our complexion. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
But it's based on parliament, and it's, the prime minister has more power than the president. But finally, now we have a democratically elected prime minister who sucks, by the way. But he's there nevertheless.
What's his name? What's his name?
Imran Khan.
Right. And wasn't the former prime minister Benazir Bhutto was killed, wasn't she?
She was assassinated. Yeah.
She was assassinated, and wasn't the guy the gentleman after her
Musharraf.
Sharaf. Okay, he was
Musharraf.
Excuse me. Wasn't he arrested for under corruption charges or something?
So what happened is that he took over in a bloodless coup, and because again, when you don't have a country that have checks and balances, right, you can have the head of the your head of military can just step in and be like, I don't like the way you're governing the country, so guess what? I'm going to remove you in a bloodless coup. And until we can all decide that we have a leader that we like, I'm going to be the leader of the country. And that's what he was doing. Now, what he did is he didn't murder nobody. He didn't kill nobody. When he came into power, this is the time when September 11th had happened. So, America went to the Indian airspace and said, hey, we need to use your airspace to go and try to take the Taliban out in Afghanistan. And India was like, fuck off. You can't use our airspace. Go fuck yourself. So then they went to Pakistan and they were like, we'll lift a bunch of sanctions. We'll throw a bunch of cash at you. Open up the airspace for us. They're like, okay, great. Yeah, open airspace open. Because of the amount of money that was being poured into the Karachi Stock Exchange after September 11th, people became millionaires overnight in Pakistan.
Wow. And that was American money?
Being poured in because of it.
And that probably fed tons of corruption. People did make money. A lot of the money was being invested in the infrastructure. So one of the things about Pakistan is that Pakistan has a very tumultuous history, right? I feel Pakistan is like an abused child that just never had a good parent, right? And it never went to therapy, so it never worked its issues out. Yeah.
So it's constantly in chaos and trauma. And I think what happened with Pakistan is like, although people made money, you have to understand our foreign policies aren't exactly the nicest. When you're in America, you don't really, unless you're into kind of the foreign policy world, you don't really know how is it that we operate on an international level. On an international level, we have, we put America first and we tell people to fuck off, although we kind of try to disguise it as we're here with peace and democracy. And then,
I know all about American foreign policy. I'm a student of history, so I also know what happened in 1947. I mean, that's when you had the
partition.
Yeah, exactly. The British left, and there was how many people died during that?
You're talking about upwards of 6 million people.
Yeah, it was a disaster. It was a great book. You probably read.
No thanks to the British. They fucking ruined everything.
The Salman Rushdie book, something Midnight Sun.
Midnight Children.
Midnight Children. Yeah. That's what the stroke of midnight. That's what that whole the period.
But my dad's side of the family had to literally pick up stuff overnight and move across the border to Pakistan.
Unbelievable.
And you have imagine Grant waking up tomorrow morning and somebody saying, "Hey, guess what? You have to choose. Either you live in California." Or you got to move over the state line, or somebody is gonna because I don't know the. Are you Catholic or Protestant? What are you?
I'm not really religious.
What did you grow up as?
Probably Protestant.
Okay, so the Catholics are going to be coming here, and all the Protestants have to move back to the East Coast. And if you don't, you are at your own risk. They probably might come and murder you, kill you, and plunder you, or take your property, kill your wife and kids.
Well, I mean, the Catholic Protestant divide certainly was that's.
I mean, the Protestant-Catholic divide is a very real divide too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how
I think it would. I fear for. Well, you're talking about extreme political beliefs. I mean, at that point, that was the Muslims and the Hindus, right?
The Muslims, the Hindus, right? You're talking about, a Muslim saying that we don't have any representation in India, right? Muslims were saying we have no representation. Gandhi doesn't give a shit about us. Nehru doesn't give a shit about us, and we want our own country, right? And that's how the Muslim League came into existence. It kind of sounds like the Marvel League, but it's like the Muslim League that came into existence. But my point about the foreign policy that I was trying to make is that the American foreign policy and our deal at the time was, when George W. Bush was in power, is that we need you to deliver us Osama bin Laden. This is the guy we're looking for, right? Now, the Musharraf, I think he maybe knew where bin Laden was. He probably knew. You're the fucking military. You're the head of military. How could you not know where this fucker is, right?
Yeah.
Maybe didn't pass it along, didn't really hold up the deal. That it's like, hey, America was like, look, we'll let you stay in power, give you a bunch of cash, lift a bunch of sanctions, get you your whiskey that you fucking love, okay? Have a merry old time. Just deliver us this asshole. You can have this. He didn't deliver his promise. He couldn't find, or so he claims, couldn't deliver Osama bin Laden. So America was like, get the fuck out of here. Next.
Wow. But Americans, they were, if I recall, that was 17, 18 years ago, the Americans staged we staged a lot of our military in Pakistan, right? And isn't the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan like pretty porous? Like it's pretty kind of, it's not like people are moving back.
The borders, let's call a spade a spade. There are no such thing as real borders per se, because it's all wide open.
Right. Well, that's where the Taliban were very active up there, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
They still are.
They still are. Yeah, of course. Which is a weird thing. I mean, American foreign policy with regards to the Taliban. I mean, I don't know. It's what's even going on? I mean, with that, those guys are crazy.
Use them. That's the problem with our foreign policy, and the reason that you have these policies is because, old white dudes calling the shots. You don't have fresh blood. You don't have other diverse point of view to be like, hey, maybe this is not the best way to conduct ourselves. Maybe we shouldn't do this, right? Do you know how they found bin Laden? Do you know the story behind it?
Didn't somebody who was in the village that he was staying in or hiding in
Abdabad, the city he was in.
Didn't some kid or somebody find, or like somebody passed on a note or something? Isn't that what happened? I can't remember.
So while he was hiding in Abdabad, which is not very far from a military base, which is shocking that the current sitting power in Pakistan was like, we didn't know he was there. It's like, your fucking military base is right there. What do you mean you don't know he's right there?
Yeah, hiding in plain sight.
Hiding in plain sight in a giant compound. How they tracked his ass down? Through the children. His kids.
Yeah. Oh, his kids.
They did a DNA match because the kids would go to the hospital and the doctors were pretending to be just regular doctors. And when they would take the blood or inject the kid or whatever needed to be taken care of, they were matching the DNA, and that's how they tracked it down. That's how they tracked him down. That they tracked down that this is the compound that these kids live in, and that's probably where Osama bin Laden is.
Let me ask you a question. That whole period was it seems like ancient history now. It was like 17 or 18 years ago. Although when Osama bin Laden was taken out by Obama, well, that was about maybe, I don't know. When was that? Obama's first term or second term?
I think it was Obama's second term, if I'm not mistaken, unless I'm wrong.
I think it was.
Maybe it was the first term?
First term, maybe. I don't know. But is Al Qaeda still in the minds of Pakistanis now? I mean, do people still?
That's a very broad question. I think it's a very I won't say broad. Actually, it's actually a very nuanced question in the sense that you have to kind of talk to locals, and I haven't been to Pakistan since 2006. So
So
I
you
think
don't have much communication. Yeah, okay, that was my question. I just don't know. Americans have always been very bad with foreign policy, as you said. The average American, the government's doing something else.
Well, I'm talking about the government. I'm not talking about the average American. I'm talking about the government are the ones who are making these foreign policy and then enforcing them when they go overseas. Right? They're the ones that you're talking about. Your ambassadors and whoever there's a great deal of.
You just said your ambassadors. Are you talking? Do you not consider yourself an American?
Of course I'm an American, but like yours as in ours.
Okay, yeah.
Our ambassadors are, when they go overseas, not really the best.
Oh no, we've had a terrible history. In South America, we overthrew Allende in Chile. We got messed up in Guatemala, El Salvador. I mean, a lot of this stuff it's always usually a proxy from some other bigger geopolitical concern. The Soviet Union.
Look, when there was this whole talk that there was going to be weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and then we took over the whole fucking country in a week, and it's just like, where the fuck is the mass destruction at?
Yeah.
Everybody forgot about that. Nobody talks about mass destruction. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. I'm like, my weapon of mass destruction is at a fucking bakery because I love cake.
Well, then we invaded the wrong country. I mean, remember that? We invaded Afghanistan.
You're talking about...
No, I'm sorry. We invaded Iraq, when we should have been going into Afghanistan. We invaded Iraq. They had nothing to do with 9/11.
We should have went to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. That's where the fuck we should have went. But we're not going to go touch the Saudis because those motherfuckers have oil. And who is our, friend in the Middle East besides Israel? Saudi. Why? Because we want their oil. So we're not going to go and bomb the very fuckers where this motherfucker came from. No.
Yeah.
We go to the poor Muslim countries who don't really have much say. Those are the fucking countries we go after.
Osama bin Laden was basically just like a spoiled rich kid, right? He was the scion of one of the owners of the largest Saudi construction firm.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that gets me on a whole thing where I'm just, if you grow up like a spoiled rich kid, you're either going to become a terrorist or you don't have much perspective on the way other people live. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very easy to fall into these kind of revolutionary roles, right?
Sure. But you also have to think like, there's no fucking way Osama bin Laden would have this level of backing of the Taliban the way it did, because he was Al-Qaeda, but just that whole backing of Taliban is, let's not forget, we were using the Taliban to fight the Soviets to win the fucking war. I mean,
exactly right, and we exactly so the Soviet Union was fighting the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the 1980s, right? We were supplying money to the Mujahideen and to Osama bin Laden, he was a young fighter at that time, right? Okay, so what happens? What happens to the U.S. foreign policy all the time? It's like the chickens come home to roost. I hate using that phrase, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
We're planning a bomb inadvertently, and then decades later, it blows up in our face, right?
That's right.
We created those jihadists to some extent. We gave them the money. We gave them. We even did we provide tactical training to them when they were fighting the Soviets? I believe we did.
Of course we did. The problem with these foreign policies is that we think that we're so slick, right? We're just like, oh, we're going to give them this, we're going to give them that, and we're going to get what we want, and then we're going to give them the fuck off, and then we're going to go live our own lives. And it's like, no, you don't understand. We live on the same goddamn planet. Yeah. Like, you're not just going to fuck off to Mars. Like, you're going to be on planet Earth. You have to deal with, the mess that you created, and it's going to eventually come and haunt you and bite you in the ass, which it has, sadly, right? September 11th was the fucking bullshit, like all the bullshit foreign policies that we built for all the years. This was sadly came and bit us in the fucking ass.
Well, I'm going to dissent a little bit with that. I mean, I will admit that the U.S. has been.
I'm not in agreement of it. Fuck and fuck those assholes. That's not I'm not defending that in any way.
Right, I understand. You're trying to make sense of it. Yeah, it's true. we're all in this together. Everything's interrelated and connected. And the truth is, the actions you take, or as a country we take now, are going to have ramifications that we can't even predict.
That's correct.
A decade from now, or 2 decades from now, or maybe 100 years from now, right? I mean,
right.
So it's. I try to take the long view, on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But,
I think you and I agree on a lot of the stuff. Sean Carter says that your head is so Lex Luthor-ish. I didn't even see your head. I don't know what he's talking about. I didn't even see it. We talk less about production and more about foreign policies, but it was a fun conversation. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Are you? We're going to start wrapping up, but I want to ask you, what do you think is going to be the future of film? I mean, what do you think is going to be? Do you think it's going to be more like film is eventually just kind of, it's going to be TV is going to be the kind of main focus, or, people are going to start fucking making movies on their iPhones and be like, cost less, made a movie, people love it, yay.
That's a good question. I've thought about that a lot. I don't know. So much of Hollywood is based on the fantasy of you've got these performers, you're paying extra money to see, a particular star. I think the whole notion of this universe of kind of detached celebrity has crumbled. I mean, because everybody's on this, right? Even your favorite celebrity is posting pictures of their dog, and right. To a certain extent, I mean, what are we paying for then? So do we really need to be spending $10 million on this particular star? Do we really, or do we want to pay less money for a better story? You know what I mean? I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, I think all we can do is continue to try to tell the stories we want to tell. I mean, it's difficult. I mean,
what about you? Like, are you thinking that, like this feature that you just shot, are you gonna try to go and take it out to networks and see who's gonna buy it? Or are you gonna independently release it and be like, I just want to make the money and then keep the money?
So I'm not the executive producer. I was just brought on as a director on this project. Okay. So I don't know the answer to that. It's not actually my decision.
Got it.
But I suspect that they're probably mainly considering something like a Netflix or a streaming solution.
Got it.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right. Grant, do you deal a lot with studios and have projects working with them, or what is your experience like when you go into studios? Like, are they? Are you even? I mean, I'm talking about pre-pandemic. Like, when you moved out here, like, for us New Yorkers as artists, when we're in New York, we're like, oh my God, Los Angeles and opportunities, and then you get here and reality is harsh. In Los Angeles. I mean, it is harsh.
Yes, it is.
You're like, wow, this is really nothing like I imagined it to be. I mean, this is a lot harsher than I thought, Was that the same experience for you where you're just like, yeah, this is a really tough nut to crack here?
So I don't have much experience with studios. When I first came out here, I got signed with one of the major agencies as a writer for TV.
Okay.
But I never got it. I went on tons of meetings. So I went to all the studios. I was basically trying to get a job as a writer. But nothing ever happened. And I don't think I was right for that. I mean, I obviously got my foot in the door because of my writing skills, but I was always making money as a director, doing commercials in New York.
Yeah.
I don't think my heart was in the game for that. Sitting in a writer's room is a really different job than
it's a very different world. It's a very
I just don't think I was. I mean, not to say that I wouldn't have jumped at it. I guess on some of the truth is, like, I remember I went to one interview. It was some teenage witch series on I think CW or something. And I remember they said, well, if we hire you, you're not going to be doing any writing. And I said, well, what am I doing here? And I said, well, we just want you to come up with some spells for the witches. And I thought to myself, and this is bullshit. Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, like I just thought this, the writing world is so stratified. You start off at a certain level and you try to get up to like an executive producer, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't my thing. I've always worked independently.
Yeah.
If I had money, it would have been nice because you can make money.
I mean, the money's great. Any of my writer friends, I mean, I hear their stories, and even with all their credits and how many, their resume is like fucking a mile long. They're like, Mona, the amount of bureaucracy, the amount of, how well your representation is, what kind of context they have, just to get your foot in the writer's room. And when you get in the writer's room, that's another set of challenges. Like, just talk enough. Don't talk too much. Don't do this. There's just so many hurdles you have to constantly jump and overcome. And, my manager and I were having this conversation. And he's like, I want you to start putting a packet together for writing rooms. And I was just like, I don't mean to be an asshole or cocky about this, but I don't really see myself in a writer's room. I don't, I was like, I see myself being more of a host of a show. I have 2 shows that I've developed. I am currently working on them. I have my live streams that I do. I have my stand-up special I'm working on. I just got brought on as an executive producer on a documentary. So I have like all this other stuff going on where I'm just like, I don't really see myself in the writer's room. And also I feel like, and just being honest with myself, I don't have the temperament for that. I don't have the temperament to be like, I just talk a little bit now and then
yeah.
Oh my God, like,
it's incredibly corporate. It's incredibly corporate. People think that like writing
politics
and politics, corporate, and now there's I don't want to get too deep into this, but there's identity politics, which has infused all of this. Like you need to have a certain number of African Americans, a certain number of South Asians, a certain number of like it's everything now is race, which is look, we can talk about there's positives to that, there's negatives to that. It's like it's less about what you're bringing creatively now, and more about are you filling some HR requirement?
Yeah, it depends. It depends. Sometimes it's like I was having a conversation with my EP about this, and he was like, "Look, if you're gonna make a Superman, right, and just put a black dude in there." And not have any of the backstory that truly tells the story of this black character, but you put them in a white story. It's like it's not fair. It's not fair to the Superman franchise. It's not fair to the actor that you're putting in. If you're gonna make a black Superman, then you gotta give him an authentic, true life that is strictly theirs. Not trying to fit them in. Not trying to take like a square and try to put it in a round peg, like round peg in a square. Like. It doesn't work. So that part I understand. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get it.
That's an interesting. Was it a white? Was it a Caucasian person?
He's a white. Yeah, he's a white Jewish dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have no. It's interesting. It reminds me, Megyn Kelly, the newscaster. I actually like Megyn Kelly a lot. Yeah. But I think was it her or was it somebody else saying there's no?
Not after blackface, I didn't. But okay.
No, yeah, well, that was. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like the thing about Santa Claus being African American. I have no problem. These characters are all fictional. Why not? Right. So I don't agree with your friend there. With all due respect, I think why not? I see. I don't have an issue with that because that to me is a positive attribute of identity politics, right? Where we're saying, hey, like, why not break down that barrier? It's somewhat.
I'm not against it. I mean, don't
No, I know.
I'm all about it. It's like, let's try it. Let's give it a shot. Why not?
There's a negative side to identity politics, which we all know, which is suddenly it's no longer about empowering the group. It's about excoriating the other group, right? It's about pointing the finger at the other.
It depends on the intention, right? It depends on the intention of the people putting that project together. If I mean, look, I'm not going to name names, but there was a very big executive. Actually, he was the president of the studio. And I was in his presence. And he was having a conversation with another very big executive. And this executive said, I have a project I want you to take a look at with 7 female astronauts. And the president said, who's going to believe 7 female astronauts? I'm not gonna greenlight that project. Right? That's a problem, right? That's a mentality problem. Like for
that is 100%.
For him to be like female astronauts, no, there's no such thing. Nobody's gonna believe that. I mean, that's wild. The project did get made, thank God. But the intent matters, right? What intention are you coming with? If you're just coming up with the intention, oh well, we just gotta fill this quota. We just gotta fill like 2 brown dudes, 2 brown girls, 1 white dude, 1 black guy. All right, who we got? Just fill it up. And it's just like, okay, well, are you just filling quotas, or you want to get some really fucking talented people? But then again, there's also the catch-22. How the fuck do you get good at something, which as a stand-up comic I go through? How the fuck do you get good if you don't get stage time? If you don't get the opportunity to go up and hone your craft, then how do you get good?
Have you experienced as a female Pakistani American? I don't know how you identify yourself, but whatever. Have you ever experienced? It seems to me that Here's the thing. I've spoken to people who. Some people tend to amplify, especially in the current political environment, whatever situations they're going through, because it's so easy now to be a victim, to claim that status. Have you personally? What's your experience as a female comic? Have you had those experiences?
I don't know if it's easy to. I mean, look. I think there's that's a bigger conversation, right, about the victim thing. But I can tell you that when it comes to major comedy clubs, they have the same 10, 15 comics, predominantly male, white.
Still
gonna run the shows, right? Somebody like myself is not really gonna get that regular gig at a comedy club unless I'm on some some fucking big television show or movie, right? That's the only way that I can. But while somebody who's telling average jokes and is in with the cool crowd and in with the cool kids and probably looks like them, talks like them, behaves like them, has more of a leg up than I do, and I've witnessed this firsthand. I've seen it, especially in Los Angeles.
Okay, right.
Are there more opportunities now? Yes, but I look at the lineups. I look at the lineups of the comedy clubs, and it's like the same 2 women you book. Laugh Factory recently was in a lot of hot shit, and I was talking about this yesterday with a female comic I had on. And they got into a lot of trouble this year because they came out and said, we can't find female comics. You can't find female comics. What the fuck are you talking about? I personally have auditioned for you 3 fucking times. Every time you say you want to pass me, but you come up with an excuse that you say that I went up by 15 seconds or 30 seconds, so we can't pass you. Okay, forget about me. I know at least 5 other females that you've, passed, but they've never worked your comedy club.
Are these male bookers at the comedy club?
Male bookers, sure. The owners are male. Yeah.
I don't know that world at all. I was just very curious. It would seem to me that you could exploit this because you are unique in this particular space, given your background. Like this could be a niche for you.
I mean, the only way I don't even know if exploit's the right word, but the only way I can even take enjoy this opportunity is for me to have a big TV show or a film that would make me just kind of undeniable. It's like, oh, you gotta book Mona. She's on that hit show on Netflix that everybody's watching, and it's like, oh yeah, come on in. Then I'll
of course. But you also have, beyond whatever that marquee value may bring you, you just have a different experience. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. Like I said,
I have a totally different experience. I mean, look, that's why. But I gotta come up with all this content, right? Nobody was gonna give Mindy Kaling her own show. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Nobody was going to give Mindy Kaling her own show. She was smart. She, got a gig. She was on The Office. She was an actress on it. Eventually, trying to, got smart. She was like, hey, can I start producing or executive producing some of the episodes? Climbed her way into being like, hey, I want to write my own stuff. Then came up with a brilliant fucking concept. Like, hey, what are Indian mostly known for? Doctors. So your doctors or your cab drivers, we are kind of put in these boxes of stereotypes. She was like, what if there's a girl named Mindy, whatever, and she's a doctor and has her whole life experience of how she juggles these. It's like, oh, it's brilliant, But Mindy had to write that show for herself. And thank God that she became successful and does what she does. But nobody was going to give Mindy that.
No, of course. But are you working on, I actually don't know. I mean, I know of her, but I haven't seen her work, quite honestly. I don't watch a lot of, I personally don't watch a lot of comedy. I mean, I did watch The Office. I loved The Office.
Me too. Me too. I watch a lot of comedy too, Grant.
Are you working on your own stuff? I mean, you must be. You must be writing your own TV show. I mean, you must be working on.
That's what I was telling you about. I have the 2 TV shows. I have my stand-up special. I have the EP thing, and I do my license. So yeah, I have a lot of stuff that I work on.
Well, that I think everybody's waiting for this pandemic end, because all of this pent-up creative energy can sort of, we can get going. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, but then we have the fucking anti-vaxxers to deal with. That's another set of bullshit.
They've always been there. They've always been there. I remember I went to Comic-Con, and there was a kind of a cadre of them in the Guy Fawkes Anonymous masks outside of Comic-Con, very frightening, and handing out these like pamphlets. And I remember being like, wow, these people are they were insane. Handing these pamphlets saying that this is before COVID. They were against the flu, mumps, measles shot. The three shots you get when you're a kid. It's the same group of people, right? They're convinced. I don't know what it is.
The fucking Jenny McCarthy's of the world, Grant.
Yeah, I've read. I don't really pay attention to her, but you're right. I recall her.
Jenny married to one of the crazy Baldwin brothers. Like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Shut up. People don't understand. There's a reason we don't have a fucking measles breakout. We don't have a smallpox breakout. We don't have a breakout. It's called a fucking vaccine.
Yeah.
That's what single-handedly has been able to allow us to progress in society and the world the way we have. Thank God for those vaccines. But now we have a set of assholes who are like, oh, I don't know what's in the vaccine. It's like, well, you sucked a lot of, not to be gross, sucked a lot of unwashed dicks. I have no idea why you're worried about putting this in your system, but you put a lot of unclean shit in your mouth. So take it easy, Brittany. Don't worry about it, okay?
Yeah.
Just take the fucking vaccine, okay?
It's weird. It's a weird mentality. I don't understand it. I don't know where that mentality comes from. It's a weird paranoid kind of, right? It's the same people who believe in other crazy things, right?
Right.
That the government's hiding UFOs in the desert, and I don't know. It's the same thing. It's the same mentality.
Yeah, QAnon. There's a name for them now. It's the QAnon conspiracy.
QAnon people. I still don't understand what that is. People are talking about. First of all, what is that name? What does it even mean? Why the letter Q? Like, what does that even stand for? Do you know?
Question what the fuck they're talking about.
But it's connected to that thing that happened when Hillary was running against Trump, and somebody said they were running, the Democrats are running a child pedophile ring,
right. And under a pizzeria. That's right.
In DC. And then that moron showed up with a AK, with like an M6. Like, that's the mentality.
That's right.
These people will believe anything.
Honestly, I think what the pandemic did, it kind of 2020 is like the Vision 2020, right? Like, everything's clear. And I think 2020, what it did is it clarified that we're not such a fucking great society as we thought we were, because we don't believe in science. We deny logic. We have there's a group of people that love a cult-like mentality that would rather believe in conspiracy theories than actual scientists who've actually come up with vaccines and medicine that could save their fucking lives and has saved their lives. But they'd rather believe somebody like QAnon or Donald Trump or some fucking idiot because it somehow, connects with them emotionally, right? It's like, oh, I emotionally connect to your ignorance is on the same level as my ignorance. I love you. Let's talk.
Yeah. Let's cuddle. What you said? Let's cuddle.
Let's talk. Let's talk. Like,
Yeah.
let's fucking. And I feel like kind of that's where we're at. And
Mona, it's always been here. It's always been in this country. It's been in every country. It's part of the human condition.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I don't know. Trump was a disaster, but I did not suffer from Trump derangement syndrome the way some people did. I always thought of him as just a giant, bombastic sort of blowhard. People were convinced he was going to start World War III, and I'm like, he's not going to do that. He doesn't care about that. He's thinking about what he's going to eat for lunch. He's thinking about
what he's going to eat for lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just unfortunate that this guy somehow it was fairly predictable that a gentleman like this would become president of the United States. I have to say. I mean, it is all of our vulgarity, the United States' vulgarity, just kind of writ large and then deposited into the Oval Office.
Right.
But I never took him seriously. Whereas I have my liberal friends who were literally for 4 years like frothed at the mouth. I thought they were gonna like their heads were gonna explode. And I was like, don't take this guy so seriously. He's exactly who he is. He's a bloviating, he's a dinosaur. He's gonna thrash around and then he will be off the stage. All right. It's just right. That was my opinion.
But he's done something really, really fucked up, besides the other corruption and all the ways he's found a way to line his own pocket and his ugly little children's pockets. But besides that, he's let out this genie out of the bottle. And President Obama was talking about it recently. He was like, how do you put the conspiracy theory genie back in its bottle? I mean, it spreads like fucking wildfire. How do you put the genie back? And he goes like, that's the multi-million-dollar question.
I think it's always been there. I think it was out of the bottle. I think it was always out of the bottle.
Have you ever heard of QAnon before this year?
No, but I've heard of a lot of other crazy shit on the right and the left.
Listen, you hear of for instance, you took toilet paper or you took some whatever, some tissue and you were blowing your nose with it, right? But then Kleenex came along, and then Kleenex was just the name. You were like, oh, let me get that Kleenex. Well, it's like, oh, but that's not actually a Kleenex box, but it's like, but it's a Kleenex, right? Yeah. It's branding, right? So what QAnon did is they branded the crazy. It just branded the fucking crazy. It's like, oh shit, crazy has a new name.
Yeah, it is a good brand. It is a good brand. It does make you lean in a little bit. Like, what is that? What is that QAnon? I want to find out more about that.
They branded that shit, is what they did.
And they always have these photos of people like at these rallies with like the giant Q, but then the Q is like papered over with the American flag. Like there's so many weird kind of symbols that are being utilized here.
That's right.
And I still don't know what it means. What does QAnon mean? Something anonymous? QAnon? What? I should look it up.
Anonymous for anonymous, and the Q is who the fuck? I mean, honestly, it's just like
it's completely batshit crazy, but it's always been this stuff in this country.
I think these guys are living in their mother's basement.
Sure.
And they masturbate to probably anime porn or hentai, because that's the only thing they can get to.
I see a lot of women following this QAnon thing now.
Oh yeah, some of the ladies. Let's not forget that they live in trailers too.
Yeah.
And they are just big fans of, but the one common thing that you can't dismiss is lack of education. The thread is lack of education, right? If you're an educated person,
yes,
your odds of following QAnon are pretty minimal. Pretty minimal.
Well, I would say the same thing about. So I'm from the Pacific Northwest, okay. From Seattle. So I know. I don't have a direct experience, but I know the culture out of which groups like Antifa came from. So I would say that these are the left-wing equivalent of these people. In fact, Antifa is probably more dangerous in some ways. I mean, they took over that neighborhood in Seattle.
Yeah.
That they took over that. I lived there for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know that neighborhood. They fucking destroyed it. And 2 people died.
Wow.
So the craziness is everywhere. I can't segregate it on the right. I see it on the left as well. So it's the same thing. Lack of education. These people have no perspective. They're usually, I will say this though, the QAnon people tend to be older and deluded, whereas the Antifa people tend to be younger. So maybe they'll grow up, whereas the QAnon people seem to be kind of already over the hill, and they've just kind of full, you know what I mean? That is a little disturbing, right?
Really? I thought the QAnon people were young too. I thought there was like a mixed bag of.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. Antifa tends to be very young people.
Antifa is very young, very woke, very much about, but they're, I would never compare Antifa to QAnon, because QAnon is a little too fucking batshit crazy. Look, there are people I'm sure in Antifa that are doing fucking batshit crazy things under the guise of being woke or whatever. My neighborhood was lit on fire. Just like, your neighborhood, like the amount of looting that went down, all the bullshit that went down. You also have that. But you have to understand, it's not always the fucking Antifa people doing this. There are people who are fucking disguised as Antifa saying, "Oh, I'm all supportive of Antifa and I'm going to loot this fucking store." It's just like, yo, that's not part of the deal. That's not.
Yeah, there were people who took advantage of everything that happened. Yeah. Again, nuance. We have to talk about this. Right. We have to have honest conversations about what happened. Right. During all of this, probably now is not the good time.
Emotions are still running pretty high. I think until we get to a point where we're not having a president that's blowing up tweets every single day from his fucking village.
Yes.
I want to hear the minimal amount of stuff from Biden. I don't want to see him every day in the news. I don't want to see him talking and running his mouth. I don't want to see that shit.
I 100% agree. I would love it if the pot would come down off of boil and maybe just either go to a low simmer or just turn off.
That's it. That's what we need.
We don't want to just have less politics in our life.
Less politics. Let's try to get the economy back to, better than where the fuck it was.
Better than flatlining?
Yeah, there's a big windfall coming, right? Real estate is going to be a giant windfall.
If it's anything like 100 years ago, we've got 10 years of good times, and then of course it'll all fall apart in 2029 when the stock market collapses. But we're only on this planet for a short period of time, so.
Yeah, but just so you know, we are past an hour 35, and you said that you were concerned how the hell we're gonna get to an hour and a half. We're hour 36 now.
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up because I know my wife is probably like, "Hey, honey, it's New Year's Eve. You're sitting in your office.
I gotta go make dinner, so I'm totally with you." Grant, are you active on social media? Can we go watch any of your stuff? Like, what can we do to follow you?
I will be more active. I'm probably not as active as I should be, but there.
You have a website people can go and see your work at?
I have a website for the latest short film I did, which is www.glintfilm.com. Let me get the actual address. www.glint.
You are so not a social media guy, are you?
I know. I really have to get my act together. It's glint/film.com. This is a great short film. We actually recently got into the Santa Fe Film Festival. We're hoping that it's going to be a live experience as opposed to a virtual experience.
Okay.
But it's www.glint/film.com, and this is a psychological thriller. It's a really kind of edge of the seat.
Like all of 2020, like that?
It's not for the faint of the heart. I'm a horror fan, psychological horror especially. That's what this film is. We've gotten into a number of festivals, and people want to check out this website. Yeah. Go for it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, Grant, this was a fun conversation. We'll bring you back on again.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk more about film and all that good stuff. But have a great New Year.
You too.
I will see you in 2021.
In the flesh. We'll get together for coffee.
In the flesh, man.
Yeah.
Get the vaccine in.
Okay. All right. Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. That was the fantastic Grant Janes. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I know I kind of went all over the place. If you guys, thanks, James. Let's go party. Yay. New Year's Eve, baby. I'm going to go make some nice dinner. You guys, I will see you tomorrow. Believe it or not, I'm actually working on New Year's Day. Yeah, because that's what I do. If you haven't followed me on my YouTube channel, please do. You can follow me at Mona Shea Comedian. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mona's Comedy and on Facebook at Mona Shea Comedian. Always a pleasure. Stay safe out there. Don't party too hard. Well, party hard if you're home. Fucking get wasted. Have a good time. Good night. Have a great New Year's Eve.